We are now joined by Kyle Tucker from the Louisville Courier-Journal to talk about some of the basketball woes. And Kyle, earlier we talked a little bit about this Tennessee team tonight. Not a good offensive team. You expect Kentucky to come out and kill them, but we expected that with Vanderbilt. When you look at how these teams match up, are we at a point where maybe just Kentucky isn't as good as we all thought it was?
I think that's possible. I mean, I think it's a real possibility that this team is just not going to, I was talking to somebody earlier today, and it was easy for all of us to just expect they'll get better. They got a lot of talent. They'll get better. They'll get better. That's what Calipari's teams do. I mean, you look at the team 2 years ago, they lost 6 SEC road games, and they certainly didn't win a Final Four team, and they were 1 point from playing for the national championship.
Go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. You can finish. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I just think that sort of, his reputation, Calipari's reputation, sort of led all of us, rightly so, to believe that every year it's going to be bring in a bunch of talent and watch them grow, and they'll be title ready by the end of the year. And there's still plenty of time. There's 16 regular season games, at least 2 or 3 probably SEC tournament games. But this team looks like it may be different. And he talked about yesterday what is different. And I asked him, I said, you've had young teams. They've all been good. Why is this one different? And he said, there's no one to mimic here. Every one of those other teams had at least one veteran anchor guy, a guy that, the young guys can look to. And he said there's no defensive stopper. And there's not. There's no DeAndre Liggins. There's no Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, and I don't know that you can't just find one in the middle of the season. They don't have one.
Part of that, I think, is the personality, and that kind of is the same thing. They just don't have overall, not even just that one stopper. To me, it seems like it's frustrating when people say they don't play hard, because clearly all the guys play hard, but it's just they play almost lost sometimes, like they don't understand how to be a great team. Is that something that a team can figure out collectively in the season, or is that just you either have it or you have to have someone there who's gone through it before? Because it seems like they're just not finding that way, to be a great team and close games out.
Yeah, I mean, I think, the seasons are so long now, and Calipari's talked about this before, where by the end of the year, his team full of freshmen, they're not really even freshmen anymore. They played 30 games. I think you can develop experience over the course of one long season, and by the end, you kind of understand. You go through some of these things like Texas A&M and almost losing it at Vanderbilt and letting it slip away against Duke, and a series of those over the course of a season does teach you some things. And I think by the end, you can be almost a veteran at the end of your freshman season. But as Cal has said, you've got to hope you win enough games as you're figuring those things out, as you're growing and you're learning those lessons. And the problem is this schedule. There wasn't any marquee win in the non-conference, and there aren't many to be had in the league schedule. And so can they win enough games? Can they win enough good, quality games? And can they avoid any more of these bad losses, just to give themselves a chance? I think as long as they get in the tournament, a team this talented with 4 future lottery picks on it, anything could happen, especially one that has gone through some battles and maybe learned some tough lessons. But you really start to wonder right now, are they going to even get that chance? Are they going to get in? They're going to have to go on a nice little run, I think, to do it.
Yeah, this seems like the team that, after the bracket comes out and all the experts put their picks out there, that this is going to be the dangerous team in every region. Like the region, whatever they're in, everybody's going to say this is the dangerous team. And it comes back to talent, but they don't really have – I mean, it's tough to say. We talk about Alex Poythress being inconsistent, but he's still put up good numbers. It just hasn't been great what they need from him, and part of that is because Calipari's roster, there's no versatility. The guys, you have a lineup, you have to stick with it. When you look at this team and going towards this tournament, if they're going to get in and maybe do some damage, who's the guy that really needs to take his game to the next level? Is there one guy you can say that they really, really need him?
Well, I think there are 2 guys in 2 different ways. I think you mentioned, I think it's got to be Alex Poythress, because he's the guy that can be a dominator. He can be the guy that you say nobody can check him. When he is really, on fire, when he's, trying to be a beast, as Calipari keeps saying. There really aren't many people in the country that can check him. I mean, he's just got so many versatile skills. He's got size and power and quickness, and he can shoot the ball, and he can, play above the rim. He's the guy that could be a nightmare for opponents if he came to play every night. And then defensively, Archie Goodwin has got to, come on. He's got to be Cal. I asked, or somebody asked Cal. He said you don't have a stopper. Is there one that might emerge? And he said maybe Archie Goodwin can do it. And if he can't, they're going to end up playing a bunch of zone. Calipari hates zone. He's not comfortable with it. He's not necessarily a zone expert. But, it may be something they have to fall back on because they don't have that lockdown defender, and he doesn't want to do that. He doesn't believe it's the best way to play, and it's not in his comfort zone. You prefer your coach to not be coaching out of his comfort zone just to mask his team's, deficiencies. And so they could really use Archie Goodwin to come to, to put it together, to figure out what it takes. Athletically, he's as quick and strong as any guard in the country, and so you'd think if he can figure it out, and he can become that shutdown guy, they're a different team. I mean, if Elston Turner doesn't score 40 points, if he even scores, 25, I think they win that game.
Do you think we've seen the best of Kyle Wiltjer? Has he peaked as just a shooter, and he's a guy that you give 10, 12 minutes to and hope he fills up some points, but really that's the best? Have we seen the peak for Kyle Wiltjer already?
I don't know if we've seen the peak, but the reason I didn't mention him is just because I do think, to a certain degree, I think everybody can get better, get stronger. He'll continue to get stronger over the course of his career. But I think he's much closer to what he can be. He just kind of is what he is. As you say, he's a 10 guy who can step back and hit, 5 of 8 threes in a game when he gets hot, and that's very valuable. But he's also I'm not sure ever going to be a guy who can stand in front of people defensively, who's going to be, rough and tumble and aggressive on the boards. He's not really built that way, almost physically or mentally. I mean, I know he's big, but he's not a powerful kid. He's not quick at all. You've seen him a couple times. I think he's dunked maybe twice in his career, and it's been by barely. He's just not that explosive type athlete that I don't see this huge ceiling for him to grow. He kind of is what he is. He just needs to make sure he does that well and does everything he can to play defense, all out when he's on the floor. But I don't know how much he can really, grow as a player.
Yeah, just hitting shots is about the best at this point. I think people would take that. Kyle, thank you for joining us. We always enjoy having you on. It's good stuff as usual.
Yeah, man, it's always great. Thanks for having me.